Yo, what is up, y'all? Welcome into Cardinalytics, an Arizona Cardinals podcast hosted by fans for the fans. Here, very first time, got your boy Corey here. You can follow me on X, Twitter, whatever you call it, at Corey_Cards. Here with my two co-hosts who will be holding it down with me as the season goes on. Kyler Murray's-Burner, Rashad. Jake, go ahead and speak yourself.
Just a little backstory on myself. 25, lifetime Cardinals fan. I originally became a fan. My dad, as a kid, was living in St. Louis. At the time, they were the St. Louis Cardinals. Team relocated to Phoenix. My dad and his family relocated to Massachusetts. He remained a fan, and I went to my first game in Arizona when I was 1. And I've been to probably 10 games around the country since then. About as diehard as they come. Try not to be biased, but sometimes we are. But no, I try to keep it real. Try to be honest with myself and those around me. But huge Cardinals fan. Very excited. Corey kind of came up with this idea and looking to get it rolling.
Where can they find you on Twitter, bro?
Yes, you can find me at Kyler Murray's-Burner. My name's Jake, but I'll go by either, so whatever works.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Rashad. You good?
Word. Yeah, I'm my name's Rashad. I'm originally from Atlanta. Y'all can follow me on Twitter at big_shot11. Became a Cardinals fan around like 2011 when they drafted Patrick Peterson. Before then, I really didn't have a team. I just kind of watched college football, and favorite team was LSU. Favorite player was Pat Pete. So Pat Pete got drafted to the Cardinals, and the Cardinals fan I became. And since then, I've been rocking with them, die hard, through the ups, through the downs, through the 2015 championship season, through the 2018 lowlights. Been rocking with them ever since. So y'all can follow me on Twitter at big_shot11. And Corey had this idea to come up with this podcast. I thought it was a great idea. I have my opinions. I know he has his opinions, and Jake too, which to me are I feel like they're kind of unbiased. And last year we had the spaces going. This year we kind of took it up the notch to the podcast. So I like it.
I gonna follow up with that, saying this really all started from the spaces last year. I know y'all came through the spaces a couple of times when I hosted them, when we would recap games and when big news would drop. I think our biggest one is when Cliff got fired. I was too animated. I think I went on like a 5-minute spiel. It was also, it might have been one game when we just absolutely bottomed out when I lost my shit about the game, and we just went on and on. But now, like you said, we put it in podcast form, so we can have viewers. People can comment on us, see what they think about what we're saying. But I agree with both of you. I think we're all unbiased. I think all want the best for the team, no matter how that may look. And like I said, in a season like this one, I feel as though this is a great time to start something out like this, because one, you can tell we're obviously not bandwagon fans. We're rooting for the team that is supposed to be the worst team in the league. So I think our true selves can come out in that. And then, like I said, our uniqueness of none of us know each other in person, but we all kind of had that same semblance of loving the Arizona Cardinals. And so we wanted to share that with each other and then with you all. So I appreciate these two for hopping on here with me. We'll be on this journey. Most of our episodes will be recaps from the previous game, and then the next episode will usually be a review or a preview of the next game. So it's kind of how the schedule goes. Obviously, we'll break down big news. We got big news with Buddha that came out a little bit, I think, yesterday. So we'll talk about that, see how that gets into it. But, man, we just want to get straight into the game. Week 2, obviously week 1. I was actually in attendance week 1 for the Commanders game. Great experience. But week 2, we moved on, hosted a home event for the first time. Our home environment is obviously not much of a home environment, as these guys can tell you. A lot of opposing fans either enter the stadium or just have their own presence there. But we, at the same time, we were home and we looked to hold down the game against the Giants. But obviously our Cardinals went up 20-0. We were all in a text thread, pretty excited, pretty happy, feeling like this was something that was possibly the beginning of possibly something through the season, like what we could pick up on and what we could achieve. And obviously it bottomed out at the end. Cardinals ended up losing 31-28. Daniel Jones comes back all the way down from 20. He comes down from 20, and then they were down 28-7 as well. And he still made a comeback, 31-8 in one half. Week 2 takeaways. I'll let you all go first. Jake, we'll start with you. Week 2 takeaway. What is the biggest takeaway that you have from the game versus the Giants?
To sum it up in one word, tank. Yeah. You can look back in the Twitter sphere, or the X sphere, I guess you could say. I really bought into the fact that I thought Gannon and company were going to change the culture. And I'm not saying that they're not, but, to throw a stat at you, through the first 2 games in the first half, the Cardinals' point differential is plus 20. In the second half, it is negative 27. So the numbers kind of speak for themselves. And then throwing Buda on the IR, lose him for another 3 games minimum. It really does scream tank. I don't see Kyler coming back anytime soon, and honestly, for probably good measure if we are planning on tanking. But in this game specifically, as you alluded to, Corey, there's no excuse to let that game get away from you. It was a home game. When the cameras panned to the crowd, it was mostly blue, which is just always so disturbing, so embarrassing. I get heckled by my friends all the time. I live in New England. I live in specifically Boston, about 10 minutes from downtown. Just moved out here with my girlfriend for work. So just seeing that on TV, it is embarrassing, honestly. Like Corey said, we are fans at the end of the day. So seeing that, and I can't even imagine how the players must feel, because obviously a lot of egos running around in the league at this point in time. So it's just kind of a joke. And I think we as fans need to embrace this tank. You lose 2 close ones to 2 very beatable teams, and then you basically have to run the gauntlet against Dallas, the Niners, and then the Bengals. If we, couldn't pull out any wins in those first 2, I don't know how it's remotely possible that we could even sniff a win in these next 3. So, yeah, pretty dark days, being this early in the season. But, to go back to this last game, I think the live betting odds at one point were like minus 2,700 for the Cardinals to just win the game. So to lose that one was just an absolute gut punch. And I truly was sick to my stomach, as I must have tweeted or X messaged and replied countless times on Sunday after a few drinks. So yeah, it's dark days. And Corey, as you had mentioned before, I was one of the biggest proponents of the fact that we weren't tanking. But after what I've seen through the first 2 weeks, I don't think Gannon and his young company are really planning on winning any of these games going forward. So that's where I'm at.
What about you, Shot?
Yeah, I actually hate that T word, but I don't like it. I don't use it.
I hate it too.
You want to say rebuilding?
I like that better.
Like, we want to say, rebuilding. Like, rebuilding's fine, but as far as the game, like, it was at first it was encouraging, very encouraging, but then it became very embarrassing. And the encouraging part was, all the things that we saw, like against Washington, like with Dobbs, and just like the offense kind of like the things that we saw that they were potentially capable of doing, like all of that came to light in the first half. Like everybody was clicking on all cylinders. Dobbs was playing good in the passing game. James Conner was able to find some lanes running the ball. And the defense was playing opportunistic and great. But the second half, I mean, I don't know if the coaches got too conservative. I don't know if like they just couldn't execute. It was embarrassing. And Corey, I know you had mentioned on Twitter like the parallels between the Giants ending last year and starting this season, and the Cardinals ending the year before and starting last season, it's basically the same. Like you lose, get blown out to a divisional opponent, and then come into the next season, you lose at home, get blown out at home. The Giants couldn't get taken off of TV on Sunday night because it was only one game on, but the Cardinals got taken off of TV last year to start off football.
Right.
And then the next game, you go into an away game down 20 at halftime and come back and win. It was great for us last year. Embarrassing this year, just flat out embarrassing. And I mean, Buddha being on the IR, we were already down 4 starters on defense. The offense the offense looks encouraging, but I mean, defensively, I just don't know how we're going to be able to stop people.
Yeah. I think my 2 words I put it as was like week 2. My week 2 takeaway was pleasures and pain. Like literally, like the pleasures of seeing what this team could be when they have guys on the roster, when there's talent there. I mean, the offense, like you can just tell that the talent on offense, at least in the weapon wise, they have it. Like they have it. You have a very good running back, arguably at least PFF darling. I'm not too high on PFF, but PFF darling James Conner early on in the season. So far, looking like a top 10 running back in the season so far. You got you have Michael Wilson, who looks like a stud, at least in practice so far. We hoping he can put that together. You have Hollywood Brown, who we know can be a dynamic player in this league. You have Zach Ertz, who's coming back off of the ACL, but still looked good last week. I mean, during the versus the Giants. You have Trey McBride, who we know has all the talent in the world. You still have Rondale, who's now seems to be used properly now. And then other guys like Greg Dortch, and then you have other weapons on this offense when Kyler Murray gets back. And more importantly, you have an offensive line that seems to be one of the top offensive lines in the NFL, surprisingly, which is something that the Cardinals have never really said before until now with Monty Ossenfort ensuring trenches and stuff like that. So, like, offensively, you can tell, like, they have a chance when they're, like, offensively, you can tell they're a quarterback away. Like, no, regardless of whatever's going on, you can tell offensively they're a quarterback away. And, like, still with that, Drew Petzing and Nick Rallis and Jonathan Gannon, like, these guys are all for real, honestly, coach their second game in the NFL. So coach their second game as like leading coordinators and or head coaches or as a head coach. So that was all their second game. And on top of that, like you can tell, like first half, it's like a good mix of you're making the quarterback confused. You're getting pressure on the quarterback with 4, maybe 5. And then offensively, you're just continuously moving the ball. You're moving the ball. And I don't know if I can commend the Giants. Like, I should say that. I don't know if I can devalue what we did as much because I really do think overall, looking at the game, like the Giants properly adjusted themselves. They properly went into offensive mechanics. It felt like every play in the second half from them offensively was some type of play action to have our safeties come up. Like Jake, you mentioned the cover 4. Our safeties literally came up on every play because it seemed like every play that was being run was either a run play, a read option, and or a play action play to make them come up to force to get our linebackers to step up to take away, or our linebackers to step up so they could have the over the middle routes to Darren Waller, which we saw all game long, which was over the middle, or I should say all second half long, which was over the middle. And then they had the deep shots, which backed up our safety, which made our corners not be able to really contest and our safeties not really able to contest. So like, I think this is more so like on the Giants, but it's like the pain and pleasures of just a roster that our roster is in, or a state that our roster is in right now. Like they can be really good at certain points. They can overperform at certain points, which a lot of people are making out the case to be, or they can give you what they give you is the reality of their team, which is struggling, which is low depth, which is low talent, and it's just all comes to fruition and allows a team like the Giants, who, as you mentioned, Shaw, what I said about the parallels, the Giants were playing like their season was on the line, which in their case, it was like that. The media will crush them. They will belittle them. They will make them look like a team that is inferior if they did not win that game. And it was all going to be on Dabo and Daniel Jones and Mike Kafka and Wink Martindale and all these guys, because that New York media is serious. Like our team, if we say we would have lost the Raiders game in a fashion, like a bunch of our media people would have been upset. A bunch of our fans would have been upset because we let this game down, but nobody would have cared the Giants lost to us, people would have been blasting them, which is why I'm saying like their season was on the line, and they played like their season was on the line because they had that. And so it'll be funny to watch how their season trickles down based off of that, just because of the same parallels. And obviously it would require them to have a bottoming out, would require their quarterback like ours to go out, but I'm not wishing that on anybody. But I just think the main takeaway for me was like just the pleasures and pain of how our seasons will be this year. It'll be so good, and then it'll hurt a lot. Like I for one can't say that I want it to hurt a lot because I love the pleasure, but at the same time, it's just the reality of the situation, and it'll be rough. But I will be here for it, and we'll be here for it all. So offensively, like who did you guys think was like a player of the game, a moment offensively that kind of had you like, wow? I know what mine is, but for you guys, what do you guys think? Maybe we'll go backwards this time. Shaw, you can start. Your offensive player of the game, kind of what you felt like offensively from the team, I should say. Obviously, it'll be a tale of two halves, but what do you think overall from the offense and maybe your offensive player of the game?
So for my offensive player of the game, I had Josh Dobbs. I think Dobbs played a hell of a game. I think there was 2 throws that he wished he could have had back. One, the throw to Ertz, which it's early in the game. I never really really give too much weight to plays that happen early in the game because you're gonna have tons of plays to make up for it. So that play, and then I believe it was a 3rd down where he might have thought it was like a corner blitz coming, and he just threw the ball up to Marquise. It was almost an interception or something like that. Those 2 throws, I think, are the only 2 throws that he wished he could have had back. But outside of that, man, he played a hell of a game. The run, the angry run, as people were dubbing it, when he ran over, I think it was Xavier McKinney to get into the end zone. Like that just like, I mean, that just had me like, okay, we can win this game. Like Dobbs is a capable quarterback. Like people are going to rally behind him, even if we don't have that much talent out there. Even if we don't have that much talent on defense, like you see your quarterback out there playing like that, playing that hard, like as a fan base, it's like, okay, we can probably do something with this. At least until Kyler gets back. But I mean, yeah, it was a tell of 2 halves because the second half, I mean, I don't know if it's that we just couldn't get anything going in the run game outside of the first drive. But he just, I mean, I think we had a couple false starts on a couple drives that killed some drives, and then just like some empty runs. But he just couldn't get it going in the second half. And it wasn't like he was turning the ball over or anything like that, or it was just false starts, not getting anything in the run game. It was just unfortunate.
What about you, Jay? Who'd you have for player of the game or offensive player of the game, I should say, and like kind of offensively, what you kind of take away from the game?
Yeah, so I got a couple honorable mentions. I want to give a shout out to a couple guys. Hollywood, I think he flashed, as that wide receiver 1 potential. I mean, the guy's super quick. His instincts are great when he catches the ball. A lot of cutbacks and stuff that most of the time work out, and he's able to extend a play. Ertz is solid. His knee looks great. I think basically back up to full speed, looking like his usual, kind of awkwardly quick self. And then my player of the game, offensive player of the game, would be no doubt James Conner. The guy is just running almost as strong as we've ever seen. Just a lot of plays where in the past the line would kind of break down, and I guess you got to shout out the line for that too. But Connor finding ways to just get through it, extending a lot of drives, and just being that traditional running back safety net that an offense can rely on to get some chunk yardage, to get you into a 3rd and short rather than like the typical Cardinals like 3rd and 10 plus. That we've been so used to under the Cliff regime. I think he's playing great. I think he's, totally reinvigorated the way he's running. And it does make me nervous. I'm glad that we have differing perspectives on this. And I was fighting this so hard, but I really do believe that the team is not trying to win games. Like, Corey, you made the point about the Giants' season being on the line, and that was accurate. And I almost look at the Cardinals like when we were winning that game, they start thinking like, oh no, like these other teams that are losing games, like now we're starting to like get in the territory of possibly costing ourselves draft capital. So it's messed up to say, but I honestly, that like after watching that game, that really is how I feel. But circling back to the point I was making, I am nervous that few weeks down the road, you're going to start seeing players like Connor maybe get traded. As we do continue to lose games to front runners, like I mean, not a front runner, but like a team like the Browns, like they lose their cornerstone on offense. That's a team that could come knocking, looking for James Conner to go and score 12 plus touchdowns this year. So
Don't
and
say that, because that actually sounds like the perfect situation.
no,
For
seriously, man.
Allen.
I'm telling you this, like I said before, like it's dark days right now for me, as I'm sure it is for you guys. I think it's going to get like a lot worse before it gets better for us as fans. Because at the end of the day, like we are fans, so that's kind of like what I'm nervous about right now. And then obviously, like a little off topic, but a guy like Buddha too. There's been some rumors for a couple months now about like the Eagles, and who knows how much of that is true, but from the Buddha we know, it does seem a little bit different. Like, and then as a veteran player and a guy that's playing well, do you really want to stick around on a team that's fighting to tread water? So that's kind of what I'll say.
No, I
I want
mean,
to say real
I
quick
can't disagree
before
with
I
that.
say before you.
But
Yeah, I was gonna say real quick, just in addition to like James Conner, we did switch running schemes this year, obviously, because we don't have Cliff. We're not running the ball at the shotgun a lot, and like I feel like that's done wonders for James Conner. I mean, he's not running the ball in shotgun. He's running the ball in his zone scheme, coming downhill, and like it's taking less pressure off the offensive line, less pressure off of James Conner. And I think that's a huge part of his early on success this year, because that scheme fits him traditionally. I mean, he's not the type of running back that would be running out of shotgun all game, how we used to run the ball. He's just not built like that.
mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, I don't disagree with either of y'all. Like, I think a lot of players on our team are trade candidates just because of how the season could play out. I mean, that's how some certain teams in the NFL always go for it. And if they see a team that's struggling, that's looking to get off of money or create money for next year, they'll look into those players like a James Conner, like a Buddha, even like a Hollywood at certain points. Collar's his guy, but he's on his last year of his rookie deal, I believe. So I mean, he's viable to be moved. So it's a challenging time. I don't even really want to think about that, to be honest. When it comes down to it, we'll talk about it. But like for me, offensive player of the game, I agree with Shad. It has to be somewhat of Dobbs. Like, I mean, I could probably do a mix of Dobbs and Connor, because Connor was definitely toting the rock, but then Dobbs he looked clean. For one, I like that he backed up his talk. I mean, he talked all week after the game about he will look better. It'll be a little bit more of a confidence. You kind of saw the offense do a little bit more to open things up. You saw a lot of more just timing routes. You saw he was on point with the timing routes. You saw stuff like Zach Ertz on the tight end wheel, like that's, I mean, up the seam. So like you're seeing the semblance of what Drew Petzing is trying to build, and what a lot of people's sentiment was after the game was that you can see how Kyler Murray can fit into this offense and make it dynamic, which I think for any of us is all we want to see. Is like what will our offense look like when Kyler Murray is back there, who we know when he's healthy and behind a solid offensive line is an elite quarterback in this league. And I think obviously you can see the foundation being built on that. I think, but shout out to Josh Dobbs, shout out to James Conner. I think for me, offensively, takeaway that I think a big reason why we ended up like starting to falter down the stretch and like why we weren't able to kind of generate first downs is that they kind of kept spamming that counter pull, those pull counter runs. And I think at a certain point, those Giants linebackers just started shooting the gaps of the guys that would leave. So like every time we had a guard pull over or a tackle pull over, they would just shoot that gap and kind of muck it up. And then you also saw Dexter Lawrence, who is a great defensive tackle, top, I don't know, maybe 5 defensive tackles in this league. The guy consistently, I don't know if y'all noticed this, the guy consistently lined up in the neutral zone all game long. I mean, his face mask was in the center's face all game long. And nobody ever caught it. Nobody ever said anything. I have to now watch Giants games to see if he's able to get away with that all game. But he was in the neutral zone for a good, like at least 75% of the snaps that he played. And he definitely affected the game in the second half. He held up, he plugged up gaps, he plugged up holes, and that's kind of a big reason why we weren't able to start with the run game to then, push it into play action and stuff like that. But overall, I'm Josh Dobbs, James Conner, kind of my co-MVPs of the day offensively, because without those two, I mean, you kind of see how this offense would end up struggling without those two guys. Like, you kind of see how if somebody like James Conner goes down and we don't add another running back, you can see how Keontae Ingram would struggle. You can see how guys like Imari DiMercado, who I got major beef with him for twice. He got the ball on third down on a check down and ran straight out of bounds like a little girl. Like, that shit kind of pissed me off a little bit. But if I mean, we're talking about Isaiah Simmons. We know he can't tackle in space like that.
No,
you don't even try to put a move on him, not once. Like, I was just like, but neither here nor there. Josh Dobbs, James Conner for me, definitely players of the game. Defensively, I'll get straight into it. Defensively, I think defensively player of the game is kind of hard to pick one just because my mindset is so stuck on the second half. But I think it got to go to that boy Gardeck again. I mean, he continues to pop off. He continues to show himself. I think this is a guy that a lot of Cardinals fans were like, we love his energy, we love his bravado, we love his long hair, the barbarian look. But at the same time, it's like, will this guy actually be a player? And so far, under a defensive coach that we have in Jonathan Gannon and a young DC and Nick Rallis, like, he looks to be a player. He looks to be a guy that they can rotationally bring in, that can generate pressure on the quarterback. I mean, he had a great dip on Evan Neal, I believe, to be able to generate the sack on Daniel Jones. So it's like, Evan Neal's a first rounder. Evan Neal's a first rounder from Alabama of all teams. So it's like, and while he hasn't been playing great, you still got Dennis Gardeck, who is, I don't know if he was undrafted or drafted at all, but I mean, this guy is not supposed to be an NFL pass rusher like that. And so far, he has 3 sacks in the first 2 games. I think that's a huge W for the Cardinals. Overall, I think just the outside linebacker group is so far becoming a huge W for the team. Just not because they have a notable name there, but because you have 5 to 6 solid guys that you can go out there and generate. And Shad, I know when your guy BJ gets up to speed fully, you hope for him to be every down guy, but I don't think that's kind of how they want to do it. I think they kind of want to resemble that Philly multiple pass rushers, bring them all in, keep them all fresh. And that was a big thing that Jonathan Gannon talked about at the today or Monday, I believe, which was just the not being able to have that freshness of rotation due to injuries. And you can kind of see that kind of picked up on him in the second half. So a lot of people will dump on the Cardinals for the second half performance on defense. I think a lot of it would, to me, more so is just the Giants and what they were able to do adjustment-wise, offensively. But I definitely think Dennis Gardeck is going to be my player of the game. And I won't be surprised if we hear a lot of Dennis Gardeck as our defensive player of the game, like, just because of his ability to so far get after the quarterback. And I mean, so far he's on pace for what? About 12 sacks, 13 sacks. So it's like, if he gets that, like, that's like overly surprising, along with other guys like Xavier, my guy, who hopefully will put all the pass rush tools together. BJ White, when he gets caught up to speed. Cam Thomas, hopefully he can turn it back on. Victor DiMucage, who's played well so far. Shout out to Vic. I just like the fact that we have again, these guys are still, I don't know if you can say you trust them yet, but you can definitely say, like, our outside linebacker group runs 5-6 deep. We have guys that can get after the quarterback, and we have guys that can set the edge. And hopefully in this draft you add on in draft or free agency, you add on some more guys into the interior so you can continuously create a pressure with either 4 or 5 man rushes, so you can continuously drop back 7-6 in coverage to contain all receivers and tight ends going out. But Jake, who do you have for your defensive player of the game, and who kind of stood out to you the most?
Yeah, I just wanted to address something too. Gardeck is actually on pace for over 20 sacks, so
that's insane.
Let's hope he can keep that up. But
he gets 20 sacks, I promise you, he's gone next year. He's not touching this team anymore.
No kidding. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, we almost have to, like, temper these guys a little bit because. But no, I was gonna say a little bit of a outside the box answer, but I would say my co-defensive players of the game would go to Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis. I think, honestly, thinking about it too, like, I mean, yeah, there was like a few like key plays here. Obviously, Gardeck, Zaven, I think, had a sack too. DiMucage is looking great. That looks like just like great addition to the defense. But honestly, just I would say the appearance of the defense overall, for the first time in like 5 years, I was actually, at least for the majority of the game this past week and week one, when the defense was on the field, I felt confident. And I really haven't had that feeling in a long, long time with this team. But I just felt like any play now, we could make a splash play, like whether it be a turnover or a sack or a tackle for loss. I think guys like I said, going back to the two coaches that I named as the players of the game, the name, like some of the names that are playing well. A guy like Zaven, who has struggled in the past to kind of like find a home and consistently be in a position to make plays, he looks great. Gardeck was basically invisible last year. He looks great. Keitrell Clark, right? Like a 6th round, fairly small guy making plays in the secondary. Kaiser White, like, looks like a hell of a signing. Who else? Kayvon Wallace, this guy out of nowhere, right? Like, so I don't know. I like what they're doing with the defense. Like I said, I felt super confident with the defense on the field. Based on the statistics too, at least through 6 quarters, right? Like we were one of the top defenses in the league. So I have to continue to go back to my theory that ultimately we weren't set up to continue to keep making plays late in this past game and even the one before. But I'm happy with what I'm seeing from the defense, and especially with Buddha off the field, right? Like this past week, you could even make the case, had he been on the field, might have had a different result. I would shout out those two guys. I think they're doing a great job in the development of the team. And I also wanted to bring up the fact that Broncos fans all over Twitter are freaking out about VJ's defense, which I don't think any of the three are surprised to hear. But I like
only 2 weeks in, we're already complaining. I love it. There we
I
go.
somehow stumbled into that a couple of those threads, and I was having a time just liking every single negative tweet response. And that's a guy that was there for a while too. So just goes to show you, like, that guy was probably the problem, and we can kind of applaud obviously Monty, and if Gannon had some involvement in that decision to move on from Joseph, as they were considering him as a I think candidate early in the off season. So yeah, that's kind of what I would say. How I'd answer that.
What do you have for defense, Shot?
It's funny that you say Vance Joseph, because for the past 3-4 years he's been a part of this team. Anytime we went up against a top running back like Saquon, you could just go ahead and book him for 100+ yards on the ground. And you got Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis out here like stopping teams with Kevin Strong and Dante Steels. We were down 4 defensive starters this past game, and we lost. I think somebody got hurt during the game, right? We lost the 5th.
I think so. I'm trying to remember. I know Watkins didn't play. No, Watkins. Yeah, I think it was Watkins that got hurt, but I think apparently he's supposed to be okay.
Watkins. Okay, yeah. Watkins didn't play. Buddha didn't play. LJ didn't play. Somebody else probably didn't play. But
Clark was there for like a sec, and then then he came back in.
Yeah, but to get to my defensive player of the game, my defensive player of the game, I'm gonna say Keitrell Clark, and I'm gonna say Keitrell Clark because he's a 6th round rookie, and he's playing cornerback. And the best thing you could say about a cornerback is, man, I didn't hear that cornerback's name called all game. I didn't hear a thing about them all game, either because they had their man on clamps, or they didn't give up any big play. They didn't necessarily make any big plays, but the ball didn't go their side of the field. And Keitrell, I think he gave up a couple catches, but it wasn't nearly as bad as how Marco played. Marco needs to have a come to Jesus moment with how bad he played after that game. But Keitrell, you couldn't ask for more from a 6th round rookie. He came in, he took Ham's spot. Last year, Ham was starting for us. And yeah, you're right. He did get banged up, and Ham came in for a couple possessions.
Yeah.
But no, man, Keitrell, he's been balling for us. And my thing with the defense has been, if you're an NFL casual fan, if you're just like a Ravens fan, or a Titans fan or something, you don't know who Keitrell Clark is. You don't know who Dennis Gardeck is, Carlos Watkins. You probably don't even know Kaiser White. But all these dudes on defense are dogs. Like,
Yep.
they got the shoulder, they got the back plate, or they got the shirts with dogs on them. They're definitely playing like it, because to say that the defense would be playing this well, I know it's just 2 games in the season. I know we play Washington and the Giants, but even just how they played thus far, I mean, it's night and day from what we had last year. And we had you had more playmakers on defense last year. I mean, you just did, but they're stopping the run. They're getting sacks. Zaven he moved to outside linebacker. He looks like he's going to kill that position.
Yeah.
It's just the other guy was Josh Woods. I think he was hurt.
There it is. Yep. Josh Woods did not play.
So yeah, that's another guy that's starting for us, and he gave us a good game against Washington. But yeah, man, the defense is just full of dogs. They just need to find one playmaker, I think, in the front 7. Like we're talking about, you're rotating all these guys, and that's good, but you need a guy. Like when the time comes, you need a guy. And you mentioned BJ. Yeah, I hope that could be BJ, or maybe it's Majay. We still don't have Majay back. But you need a guy when it's like, all right, game's on the line, whether it's from the interior or the outside, like we know he's going to make a play. Like we know he's going to get us that sack that we need. And that's all we needed last game against the Giants. We just needed that one time on one drive to just weather the storm a little bit, because they scored 5 straight possessions.
Every possession.
Yeah, they score every time. So we just needed one play, just one sack to push them back, like one play. And when we find that guy, I mean, how the defense is operating with just a bunch of, dogs, like just people that casual NFL fans don't know, like it's going to be really, really, really good.
Yeah, I agree. At the end of the day, we're going out there with a bunch of, like, as many people have called it, replacement level players. Like that's kind of like what that is, and then you get that performance. And like you mentioned, I know it's against the Giants, but at the end of the day, Brian Daboll was this mastermind Giant guy who turned the Giants offense around. So like, what did we do so far to him, at least in that first half? It's like, you got to respect that. You got to commend that. You got to say these guys are fighting hard and battling hard, and you can see it. Like, and again, a guy with like Keitrell Clark, who I keep saying, like, I don't even think Keitrell Clark is supposed to be on the outside. I really, truly think he's supposed to be on the inside playing nickel, because he can tackle, he will tackle, he can cover, and then also at the same time, it's kind of better suited for him outside of being that one lone cornerback out there, who he can do that because of the type of player he is and the type of dog mentality he has. But like a person like Garrett Williams or whoever is supposed to come in, whoever can come in and play corner on the outside, that will be a true like cornerback on the outside. And as bad as Marco played, I think he played just as good week 1. So it's like, all right, we got the good and we got the bad. So like, let's see what you can do, because again, these are guys that are in contract years. These guys want to big second contracts in the NFL. That's always a dream. Like, you have to be able to prove you can play. And like, if you can't prove you can play on a team like ours, it'll be hard pressed to find a contract that you would like and that you would find acceptable. So like, he definitely has to step up. But I think like it's just a counteracting of like, you faced Terry McLaurin week 1 and you only had him to 2 catches, versus you come out here and you're playing guys like Jalen Hyatt, who's a rookie, and Isaiah Hodgins, who got an extension from them because of how he played for them. But on any other team, he probably wouldn't be that good. And guys like Darius Slayton, who is, come on, like their receiving core, I think you mentioned this, their weapons compared to ours aren't like that commendable outside of the running back position and tight end. So it's like, these guys are stoppable, which is why it's kind of disappointing how the secondary played. But at the same time, like, I agree with y'all. Like, this is all a growing process, especially with guys like Keitrell. But like guys like Marco have to step up. Like, you can't be that much of a liability. I would have loved for you to be able to see that post concept coming in the end of the game and be able to jump in front of that so they don't even tie the game. It's just stuff like that where you kind of hope that your players come to fruition. And I truly believe as the season goes on, Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis will get these guys to a point where they may be devoid of talent, but they will be able to compete. They will play hard, and they will not let things like 28 points or a 28-point comeback happen or a 20-point comeback happen, because they'll have the ability to know what's coming. They'll have the ability to adjust on the fly. And I think a lot of it was just like they didn't want to do too much over adjusting to have the guys' minds racing, and that the little bit too much of the adjusting at all kind of hurt them, because you could have easily stayed in that, like Jake mentioned, that cover 4 coverage, and they would have still had to do whatever they were doing. But you can see the one play that it hit at the end of the at outside of the I should say coming into the second half, the deep ball to Jalen Hyatt. You can see Shashier come straight down and kind of take away that over route. And well, if you have, disciplined players like a Buda Baker back there who know I'm the deepest field safety, I have to get back and stay back, then something like that doesn't happen. Or Marco understands that if we're playing some type of cover 4 match coverage, like this is your guy. Like we're matching coverages coming down. You have to go take him. You have to run with him. And it kind of like Marco stalled up just a second, and that allowed Jalen Hyatt to get back. So like you want to be able to see guys like Gannon and Rallis be able to adjust and have these guys in the mindset to like, okay, if you see this happening, this is the foundation, but you can also adjust yourself and be able to be in a play. Like you guys mentioned, I think we're one player on Buda Baker being a decent unit. And overall, I mean, I saw Kyle Odegaard, who I know you all know it, former Arizona Cardinals reporter. He put out, the Cardinals so far through 2 weeks are 18th in DVOA, which is kind of like the accumulating stat to how your team is playing. And 18th is acceptable right now. It's just the problem is that a lot of our fans, they don't see they don't see the wins in the win column, and it hurts you a little bit. But at the end of the day, with the team that we have, 18th DVOA, that means total encompassing after a terrible offensive performance in week 1 and a terrible 2 quarters in week 2, you're still 18th DVOA. I think you're building something solid and a foundation. But at the end of the day, it all is a foundation. These guys are all new coordinators, head coaches. These guys are all trying to build a culture that was not so much of all in all the time and so much of let's build a foundation on what we can be as a team. And this is our standard. It's going to take time. And I think it's impressing me a little bit earlier than I would expect. I truly did expect, while I wanted these 2 wins to be happening because it's the Commanders and the Giants. I truly did expect 2 teams that have been established, that have weapons, that have defenses. Especially, I'm super surprised at how well we went against the Giants defense, who was a top unit last year. I'm super surprised at that. And so these 2 teams I expected to handle us pretty easily, and we've been in each game at the end of the bell. So it's only a growing point for me, at least I should say, to see where this defense can go. And to know what we have on offense, and at least what we have on offense coming back versus what we thought we would have on defense, and seeing how well they've already played so far, I think it's still a lot of building points that we have on defense. But, it's a long journey. It's going to be a long journey, especially here on this podcast and in this season. But we want to make it worth it, obviously. I know we had the Buda Baker news that we kind of wanted to touch on a little bit before we get up out of here. Buda Baker's back to IR. Not back to, I should say, headed to IR, I should say. With a hamstring injury. Now, apparently on the Twitter streets, this is I saw somebody mention this, there's no way that you put a guy on IR for a hamstring if it wasn't quote unquote that bad. And it's well, we don't know how bad it is until Buda Baker tells us how bad it is. But I don't think it's that much of an issue to do that, because I don't think that's a motive to move him or whatever the case may be, or keep him healthy, because I think Buda Baker's a competitor, and if he could play on one leg, he would go out there and play on one leg if he wanted to. I just think it's a cautionary tale of the team wanting to hold on to his players and make sure he's okay for the stretch run that they believe that they can build, whatever that looks like when Kyler Murray gets back. But do you all fear that this Buda news, him going to IR, obviously in the stretch that we play with the Dallas, which we'll get into on a future episode, we'll get into that preview, but Dallas, San Fran coming up, Cincinnati coming up, a Seattle game I believe is coming up as well, and those will be all games that if he has to miss 4 games, those will be all ones that he misses. So how do you all feel that this will, I should say, impact the team? Do you think there's an obvious slump coming? Is it because of Buda Baker not being there, or because of the opponents? Just what do you think overall for the Buda news?
So with the Buda thing too, just wanted to reiterate the fact he'll only miss 3 games. Technically, this Giants game counts as the first of the 4. Okay. However, I do think it's necessary to bring up the fact that, do you guys remember last year? I think he had a bad ankle sprain, was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he was supposed to miss significant time. He literally played the next week.
Yeah.
So unless this staff is more cautionary, that could be a very bad omen that something maybe coming as far as what Corey, what you were kind of mentioning about possibly getting moved. Hopefully not. Hopefully they are just trying to rest him. But yeah, obviously heading into that stretch, as I kind of mentioned before, I do think that, I mean, if we blew these last two games, obviously playing better teams, I think there's a chance that the team could get smacked around. But to go back, obviously the offense looked night and day from week 1 to week 2. Corey, as you had said, Dobbs was talking a lot about that in the media the week leading up, and it was really cool to see him actually pay off on what he was saying, because he did look night and day. I mean, he was throwing some darts. I was very impressed, taking hits, getting back up, and continuing to throw the ball around. But Sean, after you answer about Buddha, I did want to ask one more question before everyone departs this chat.
Okay.
No doubt.
Yeah. So I don't know if y'all caught this in the interview in the press conference with Jonathan Gannon yesterday, and it could be nothing, but like Gannon basically told Buddha to stay at home. Like, I guess Buddha wanted to come to the game. He told him to stay at home. I don't know why he'd do that. Like, if I'm him, I'm like, sure, come to the game. It's our first home game. So I don't know if there's anything there into that, but I'd like to think that, when he's healthy, he'll play. We got one of the best strength and conditioning coaches in the NFL, Buddy Morris. Like he'll get him right. And we've seen like so many people have been getting hamstring injuries and going to IR. Like, I think obviously Cooper Kupp. I think Deontay Johnson had a hamstring injury, went to IR. Aaron Jones just had one. So maybe they could just be like super cautious with it. But I do think that when he's healthy, he'll play. And as far as like our next stretch of games, like whether he'll affect that, I mean, win or loss, like, I mean, to be honest, Buddha's a great player. Don't get me wrong, but like, he's not going to really, really affect the outcome of some of these games that we got coming up. We got Dallas, San Fran, Bengals. I don't know who's after that. Maybe the Rams, I think, after that. So
I think it's either Seattle or
the Rams.
or LA matchup.
So that's a potential game that we could win. But the one thing I'd say, like, to just going into these games, like this gauntlet that we're about to go into, like, just do whatever you can to keep the team morale up.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's like, competing hard, maybe like keeping some of these games close, like, within a couple scores or one score, being within a score within, by the fourth quarter or something like that, just keeping the morale up. And I will say, like, just as a competitor, I don't think Josh Dobbs has won a game in the NFL. So I know, like, like you're using the T word, Jake. Like, I know you might think like, they might be trying to lose some of these games, but as a competitor, if I'm on the field and I'm Josh Dobbs and I haven't won a game, I'm going to do everything preparation wise and on the field wise every single game until I get that first win in the NFL. So that might be another thing where, that motivation for him could keep the morale up until Kyler gets back. But I think Kyler's coming back. I don't know about y'all.
I think so too.
Back. Jake shaking his head. But yeah, that's basically it.
Go ahead. Why you don't think Kyle's coming back for us, bro?
So that honestly kind of like leads into the question I was going to ask you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we are just in like football fan purgatory right now, where it's like we just let these two games slip away, and like these are the most winnable games for the foreseeable future. You don't really know when Kyler's going to come back. He's eligible to come back week 5. And just to list it out, we have Dallas obviously this week, then San Fran, then the Bengals. The Bengals would be the game Kyler would be eligible to come back for. Being a quarterback, and obviously with the PUP rules, he's not able to practice or anything until that 4th week is over. So there's no way, I don't think, that he would play in that 5th game against the Bengals. You're looking at the earliest return of week 6. If we're 0-5, is he even going to come back and like start taking hits, or do we kind of settle back into that? Okay, let's rest him and like really get him right, and just kind of cut our losses with this season. But the question I wanted to ask you guys is, if you don't think that we're tanking, which like I said, I like that we have different views and opinions on that. just for the sake of the podcast and the viewing audience. But what do you deem a success? What are you rooting for? Because in my mind, it's like if we don't go and beat Dallas this week, I'm probably rooting for losses, to be honest with you, because we go out and like win like a random like 4 or 5 games, and like you're like clearly not in contention for like anything. What's obviously you want to build a culture, but like what's the good in doing that and just kind of killing the draft stock momentum that we have going right now? I mean, obviously we're all fans of whoever's playing the Houston Texans, and right now it looks really good for us to at least get a top 3 pick via the Texans. But as far as the Cardinals, like I mean, you guys know from Twitter, I was all over the let's go win games, let's go compete. Yeah. We're gonna get a low pick via the Texans regardless. So let's go play, let's reset the culture. But then you have these 2 losses, and I would even say that this past loss was pathetic. I mean, like if I had the platform to speak to the team, I would just say like, what the hell was that? Like that was really a disgusting loss. For a team playing at home and with like, do these guys just not watch like the national, like do they not listen to the national media like whatsoever? Do they not see what's going on Twitter? Do they not see what's going on these sports talk shows, on radio shows? Like they're getting crucified by the media. And it's like, as a man, and like Shot, as you had said, like I think like 3 of us are all competitors. You would think that guys in the NFL are like fierce competitors. How do you let that game slip away, especially with what's coming up? And just like there's still like things to lose. Like we should have had a win week 1, we lost. Week 2, like we're right there. We have it locked up. I mean, I think everyone that was watching football that day thought we were going to win that game. And like to lose that game, like it totally crushed me. And then I see Buddha goes to IR. It's like, what the hell? And then like, like Gannon too, like I do like him a lot. I think it's already showing too, like in Philly, their defense hasn't really been all that great through the first 2 games. And I think losing Reyes and Gannon was a huge loss to them, more so than their fan base would be willing to admit. But like Gannon's body language on the sideline like was so like gray. There was like no energy, no emotion, like as we're just watching this lead dissipate on Sunday. And then like in the press conference, like just kind of like a little bit vanilla, like almost like Cliff-esque. And I don't know, like in shot, honestly, I didn't see that bite that you were talking about. But that is super concerning about Buddha. Like that's very weird for him to not come to the home opener, even like just kind of just chilling in street clothes on the sideline, especially when he lives probably like 10 minutes away from the stadium. So yeah, I don't know. But like going back to my question, what would you guys deem a success? And I guess like what are you 2 personally kind of like rooting to see here?
You want to go first, Corey? Or
yeah, I mean, I'll go for it. To be honest, like it's hard to root for wins. I think we had one of the toughest schedules, and even as a 4th place team, like with a 4th place schedule, our schedule was still super tough because we had to play the NFC East, who had 3 playoff teams last year. You had to play the AFC North, who had literally 4 tough teams, regardless of whenever they're playing. So like on top of that, like it was going to be a tough schedule regardless of the point. Like so, we would have needed our team to be competitive to be even a capable like opponent, a worthy opponent in some of these games. So like I'm not at all like looking at the wins and loss column. I'm just looking at the foundation that they're trying to build. I think you can build a winning culture without winning. And I know that sounds backwards. Like that sounds like it doesn't really make any sense. But like if you build good habits throughout the week, if you prepare properly throughout the week, those things translate to Sunday once you get talented enough players, once you get a star, not even a star, but like a even level quarterback, which Josh Dobbs is a below average quarterback because he's a backup. So like you get an above average quarterback who Daniel Jones he's an above average quarterback. We know Kyle to be an elite quarterback. When you get players like that, that elevates your team sometimes. And like at the end of the day, I can't say that I'm rooting for either wins or losses. I'm rooting to see what I see on Sunday. I think at the end of the day, what my eyes see and what my eyes tell me will be more important than whatever that win-loss column is, because I would love to have Marvin Harrison Jr. I would love to have just the 1.1 so we can have our full decisions on, like, do we want to do XYZ with Kyler? Do we want to move this pick for a massive haul? Like, that's, of course, I want those things. And preferably I want them from the Houston Texans, but at this point, I don't even really care what people think about the team, because I know the situation the team is in. Like, and I know if Kyler Murray was starting the season, this team wouldn't be in that situation. Like, regardless of anything, if he was playing, we wouldn't be in that situation. We may be in the middling of like teams. We may not be at the top of the NFC, but we already know the NFC doesn't have that many contenders. So we could have easily been on that top level of the average teams, and then we would see where things lie. We see where things shake out. But like, it's hard to tell us as fans, because we want to go out there and be like, all right, yeah, our team won, let's talk our shit for a week. But I don't know how much of that like we can really look into, because this is such a weird feeling for us, obviously, because this team was never in a rebuild. It never was, regardless of whatever it is. This team was never in a rebuild. Like, they were never, even with Kyler and Cliff, they were in a reset, but that was an entire reset. So because you got the coach, you got the quarterback. It's not like you had a new GM, so the GM could do whatever he wanted to do in each offseason. So like, this to me is the first ever like rebuild, reset, where we're deconstructing the roster. It's not that you're resetting with just your quarterback, you're resetting with your entire roster. So like, it's hard for me at least to say like, yeah, I'm looking at this loss, that loss, so we can have this XYZ player. Like, I think the 2024 draft is filled with players, and I think if the Cardinals really cared about a Marvin Harrison Jr., they have 2 first-round picks, likely top 10 picks, to go up and get him whatever selection he'll be, or they have 2 top picks to get. Even if they don't land a Marvin Harrison Jr., you can land a top cornerback like Kool-Aid. You can land a Mozzie, what's the name? The dude from Mason Smith from LSU. You can land him. You can land. I mean, you can land a number of guys in this draft, because I think it's filled in the spots that we needed to be filled in. It's not a glorious cornerback draft like the 2023 one was, but you have guys, and then you definitely have defensive linemen in this draft. You have wide receivers in this draft. You have tackles in this draft if you decide to move off from DJ Humphries. So like, they're building themselves for a draft that they feel to be the one that can set themselves up. And I think the biggest jump that we have is that they feel they don't have to go get a quarterback. I feel they truly believe that they have a quarterback on the roster that they can build and be a contending team with. And until that comes to fruition, which I do think it will come to fruition, because I do think Kyler has to play, one, to get his own respect back. It's just, like, you want to be able to go into 2024 with some type of confidence. And if you play 0 games, you're not going to have any confidence on whatever it is, your knee, your mind, whatever the case may be. Like, you need to go out there and build some confidence for yourself. But 2, like, get his own respect. A lot of people are trashing his name, telling him he can't play under center, telling him he can't throw across the middle, telling him he's too short, telling him he doesn't care about the game, telling him he got paid. He's on a revenge tour for himself, like to prove that he's one of those guys still. And I think that's massive for himself, and also for the team. Like, you want to be able to prove that you're something to the NFL. So I do think Kyler will play. I do think that this team will show semblances of a really good team, but I don't think it'll always translate to a win-loss column. And so I can't say I'm cheering for either. I want to win, but I don't want to lose. And I wouldn't mind losing, because you get set up in a very nice position, but then you want to win at the same time. So it's a hard conundrum. I think we just have to go out there objectively. We have to cheer like fans on Sunday, cheer hard as we can, because this is our team and we want to see them win. But if they lose, we have to be objective on why they lost, and we have to be objectively the main goal and the main vision that some people may see like you said, the T word, or we can use it as a rebuild, which is what it really is. It's just a roster reset, because a lot of our players that were stars were older and or weren't going to be paid and or weren't going to have second contracts with us. So that's why they got shipped off. And real quick shot before you go, Isaiah Simmons, you have a biggest ego I've ever met in my life. No way that you sat there on Twitter while the body is still fresh. Your Twitter profile pic still has you in an Arizona Cardinals jersey. You were so pressed to go out there and say that, man, that felt good after you had 3 tackles, my boy.
He had 3? I didn't even see he had a tackle.
I thought he had one.
Maybe he had 3 pushes out of bounds. That's probably a better explanation of it.
Ugh.
Bro, the ego, cut it out, bro.
Such a fraud.
Please.
Such a definition of a bust.
But go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick. But Jake, I basically agree with Corey to an extent. I'm always gonna root for the Cardinals to win. It doesn't matter who they're playing against. Like, I'm gonna root for them to win. I want to see them win games. It doesn't matter the situation. But losing it's not hurting me this year at all. I mean, well, we lost against the Giants. That hurt.
No, Sunday hurt a little bit.
Expectations change in certain situations, and we were expected to win that game when we're up 28-7. So that hurts, right? But I mean, like, going out here, if we lose the rest of our games, even if we get blown out or we blow a lead, we've already done it. So I'm not gonna sweat that at all. But I'm with Corey in that, like, I want to see growth from the players on the team, growth from the coaches, changes in the culture. And at the end of the day, I think the big thing that people need to understand, or people should try to kind of understand, is that getting the number 1 draft pick, the number 2 draft pick, the number 3 draft pick doesn't mean anything unless you make the right pick.
Yeah.
And so off rip, we have 2 first-round picks that are probably going to be within the top 10. I don't care who they get, as long as it's the right person. I'm definitely, I wouldn't say that I just want them to get rid of Kyler, because that's not the case. Like, I would prefer to keep Kyler because I feel like he's already a capable quarterback, and you already have that in-house, so you don't necessarily have to waste draft capital on that. But, if he doesn't play, I understand. Like, you didn't see him play. You didn't really have a chance to evaluate him. I understand. If he comes back and he plays like garbage, which I don't think will happen, but if he does, I understand. But if he comes back and he looks like he's part of the solution and not the problem, which is what I've always said, if he comes back and he proves that he's part of the solution and not the problem, then there's really no need to move off of him, because what he's capable of at his peak. And so with that being said, you end up with 2 top 10 picks. You just gotta hit those. You gotta hit on those picks, because it doesn't matter where you're picking in the first round. You can get a franchise player. We traded away our first round pick last year, and we could have had a franchise starting center. We traded that pick away to Baltimore, and they used the 25th pick in the draft on a franchise center. So, and that's something that we could use right now. And it doesn't matter if he's the 25th pick. It doesn't matter if he's the 3rd pick. Like, if we could get a cornerstone piece in the secondary, a cornerstone piece on the offensive line, on the defensive line, we got 2 shots at it. So, I mean, I'm rooting for wins. And at the end of the day, like, I know, like, if we lose the game, like, it's no big deal, because we're going to have even if we win a lot of games, like, my expectations this year going into the season, like, I was like, okay, we can win 5 to 6 games. Now that we done lost 2 of the games that I thought we could have at least won 1, like, I don't know if we can win 3 or 4. It just kind of depends on when Kyler comes back and how he's looking. But it doesn't matter, because, we're going to end up with 2 top 10 picks or 2 top 15 picks or whatever. We're going to have 2 picks. And what Monty does with those picks is going to determine, how this team is going to be moving forward.
I just want to make one more point.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like what both of you guys said. I do want to make it clear. I do like the points that you made about, you always want to see the Cardinals win games. You always root for that. I'm telling you, no one loves this team more than I do. It'll always be that way. I will always root for this team in the long run. But sometimes to win, you have to lose in the NFL. And I think I'm caught between 2 points of view. If Kyler does come back, say like week 5, week 6, and we start winning games, he gets his confidence back. The team, the media can get behind him again. I think that would be great. That is ultimately what I want. I believe in the guy. I want it to work out. I really, 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 really want it to work out. Let that be known. I want Kyler Murray to be our guy going forward 15, 20 years down the road. That is what I want. However, something that I would like to address, a point that you made, Shad. I think, so you said as long as you make the right pick for the team, which I totally agree with. But a little bit of a unique situation that the Cardinals have. I feel that if we're able to go into the draft with 2 high picks, or 2 low picks per se, and we can get 2 big names, for instance, like a Marvin Harrison, which I think we must do whatever we can to get that man in a Cardinals uniform, because we need to bring, right. So just for the sake of the video and whoever might be watching this, I live in Boston, Shad's in Atlanta, Corey's in Maryland. None of us are living in Arizona, and we cannot easily get to the games. And we're probably like some of the most passionate and dedicated fans out there. Arizona is geographically a desirable place to live. You find a lot of retired people there and people from other backgrounds that want to be there for the climate. And because of that, we see this in the crowds that show up at games. They're usually very minimal Cardinals fans, casual fans, people that are simply out to lunch. And let me tell you, I hate it. And I think a way to address that instantly is to create a buzz. And in order to do that, we need to take a big name. We need to get someone that can sell out the jerseys. And I think, just as Kyler did when he first came to the team, right? To get that hype back and that excitement, because, even people that have moved out there, especially the younger people, they'll go to the games if there's stars to watch, right? So if Kyler starts playing well again, returns to that MVP form that we know he can get to, and we have a guy, specifically Marvin Harrison, that fans can rally behind and get excited about, I think that's going to drive up fan engagement and start to give you that home field advantage that we just, simply haven't had at all in a long time. And that energy is contagious, and it would rub off on the players, and it would just help the entire cause. So I think it's imperative that we obtain Marvin Harrison Jr. I really do.
And I'll say to that real quick, like, one of the unique things about us three is we're not in Arizona. We're all in different cities that have their own respective football teams. And I'm in Atlanta, and Atlanta is just like Phoenix in a way. It's kind of like a transplant city. They played Green Bay last week. Nothing but Green Bay fans there. Even when Carolina comes into town, nothing but Panthers fans there. And the one thing that you just brought up that's been consistent with Atlanta Falcons fans that I've seen grow the past couple of years is they drafted Kyle Pitts. They drafted Bijan. I don't know how many Kyle Pitts and Bijan jerseys I've seen, but you got all these people coming to the games, and it's like, oh, I want to see Bijan. Oh, I want to see Kyle Pitts.
Right.
And
it's a draw.
It's driving engagement. And even though, you go to their games and there's tons of other fans there too. Like, it's never, sometimes it's majority Falcons fans, but like a big team like the Cowboys, Packers, Steelers, even divisional teams like the Saints, it's always other opponent that has majority of the fans. But somebody like Bijan, he's driving up engagement of the fans, people buying jerseys, everybody just wants to go there just to see him.
Right.
So I definitely agree with you, and I'm all aboard on the Marvin Harrison to Cardinals train. I'm all on that.
Yeah, we'll definitely tap into that a little bit next episode, obviously, when we preview the game, because it's for some reason it's a big talking point. Like, people are surprised that, like, the other fans, especially from, you're talking about going south to a warm weather state from north, which a lot of teams you'll face this year. It'll be like that when the Bengals come. It'll be like that when the Ravens come. It'll be like that really
Next
when
week,
any team
Cowboys.
comes. Like, it'll be like that when any team comes, because it's a destination site. Like, it's where they host Super Bowls in the Arizona Cardinals Stadium. Like, that's a site that people want to go to, that they can get away from whatever they're dealing with, and whether that be home life, and go down there to watch a football game. So, like, for their favorite team. So, like, people got to understand, until we start winning games, it'll continue to be like that. Until you have a foundation set like that, it'll be like that. Even in 2015, when we were at the peak of our team, that week 15, I think it was a week 15 matchup against the Packers. It was a lot of cheese in that stadium. even before the playoff game, it was a lot of cheese in that stadium. Why? Because all of those teams planned their trips to go to Arizona already. They already planned them. Like, so people got to stop complaining about other fans coming down. I know you want pride in your team and stuff, and I do agree with both of y'all that a big draw, like a big name, would bring people in. But it'll be like this until you start winning games, until you start fortifying the home field, and when that happens, that's when you'll see more red than other team color. But until then, I mean, y'all, I don't know if y'all saw it, that the one angle that the cameraman had down there at SoFi with the Rams and the 49ers, you saw Christian McCaffrey running down the sideline, and then they panned to the crowd, and it was nothing but red. I didn't see a single blue speck. I saw nothing but red.
No,
Why?
SoFi is bad too. SoFi is
exactly.
Bad.
Why? Because the Rams' destination is a getaway destination. There's not many people that will claim themselves as like Rams fans that are going to the game. They're there. There are a ton of Rams fans, but there's not a ton of them that go to the game just as much as there are a bunch of Cardinals fans like us. There's just not a ton that go to the game. So it's like at the end of the day, when you start winning and when you start holding down the fort for stuff like that and creating moments in your stadium, that's when people will start owning it. That's when people will start holding on to it. But until then, and really forever, because I know for a fact that like when my people, like when my friends and family want to talk about going to the game as Ravens fans and playing the Cardinals, they all plan, oh, what's one trip that we want to go to? Let's go to Arizona because it's the best location in terms of weather and destination and whatever the case may be. So as much as I saw a lot of that, I saw a lot of the blue, and it is upsetting, but it shouldn't be surprising to a single person, especially us, or not so much Shaw, that's you're kind of in a nice weather state, but Jake and me, like it gets cold. It gets cold up here in Maryland. It gets cold up there in Boston. Like people will want to go down and get away from stuff like that. So I agree with y'all, but until we start winning, holding down the fort, I mean, it'll be like that. And I do agree with the big names and stuff, but overall, we'll get into all of that in the future. There'll probably be a lot of talks about Marvin Harrison going forward, and even maybe another guy that wears crimson. We won't say his name because I don't want to talk about it too much. But yeah, so see y'all probably on another episode. Hopefully, we'll be going into episode preview on this Dallas game to see how the Arizona Cardinals can somehow, some way, in God's earth name, I might win a fortune. I mean, I might win a lottery ticket before this game might be a dub for us, but neither here nor there. Anything y'all want to say to the people before we head out?
Yeah, we gotta get a streaming schedule set up so everybody knows, when we coming up, you know what I'm saying, when we're live, when we're posting, stuff like that.
No doubt.
Yeah, I would just say too, my last point I'm gonna make. If the Cardinals win this weekend, I'm back on the train. I'm back.
I'm with you.
Let's get wins train.
Yeah.
So
I'm with
if
you.
they win this weekend, then I'm back. But if not, I'm gonna have to stay where I'm at. So
no, I'm definitely with you. I think we win this weekend, and you know what? I watch, like when I'm at work, I have a TV set up. It just goes on while it plays. I don't really pay attention too much, and when I do pay attention to it, it's only because somebody's saying, "Oh, they got the Cardinals next. That's an easy dub." And I look up like, "What the hell are you talking about?" But on the other note, we beat them. I hear the Cowboys talked about every day. I will watch every Undisputed clip. I will watch every ESPN clip, and they better give us our respect. I don't want to hear this was a letdown.
They're not giving us our flowers if we
win. I will personally call the shows. I will call Stephen A. Smith show, and I will say, bro, show us some respect. I don't want to be on no top 5 list because I know y'all remember 2021 when he first started doing that A list. He would put us in there out of respect for our record, and people would be like, "Oh, the Cardinals, nah, they don't belong there." They talked up the downfall, but nah, I don't want to hear none of that. I want to hear how badly the Cowboys played. I want to hear how Jonathan Gannon beat them. I want to hear how Josh Dobbs beat them. I want to hear how the Cardinals did. I don't want to hear how the Cowboys faltered. I don't give a damn. I don't care about Micah Parsons, none of that. I want to hear how the Cardinals won. And if they don't do that, I'm calling a show personally. Just want to let that be known. But
I totally agree. Yeah, at the end of the day, the game still has to be played. And you saw what we just did against the Giants. So we can get something like that again early and then somehow just figure out a way to keep the momentum. You never know.
Let's just hope they come into the game a little
Jake
bit.
Optimistic now. Jake optimistic.
Like I said, hey, this chat's got me a little bit motivated. But if we win this weekend, I'm back, baby. That's all I'm gonna say.
Let's make sure we're filling up. Let's make sure all the people out there in Arizona, make sure you're going to the Dallas Cowboys. Like you're figuring out what hotel they're at. offer them some food, maybe like a couple of burritos, tacos. I don't know what y'all get down on out there. Whatever you can, feed it to them, but put a little bit. I mean, you might dip it in the sewer water a little bit real quick. Do something like that, and then give it to them, and then maybe they'll come out. Micah Parsons' stomach flu, Dak Prescott, he's not feeling well. Stuff like that, and then we'll definitely walk out with a W. But we'll get into it. We'll get into the matchups and stuff like that in the future. So appreciate anybody that checks this out. This is the beginning of everything. I appreciate y'all too coming on with me. Beginning of our journey. Hopefully we can wrap them up every season. I mean, not every season, but every week we'll be in every game. Even if we're 0-10, we'll still want to be here to talk about the Cardinals because not a lot of people want to talk about it. So I feel as though why don't we start off our own thing? So appreciate y'all, and we will see y'all in the next one.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, boys.